Hello, welcome to the Square Base Show, where this week you get to find out everything that happens in the world's biggest online tournament.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do.
It only ended a month ago. All right.
So the quick TLDR of what we'll be talking about later after we find out how me and Val have been doing in this old world universe that we call life.
Yes.
We are going to be I'm going to be talking about Val, what it was like and what he learned.
Our world is an old world.
It is an old world. We're going to find out what it was like running the world's largest online old world event to date, what he picked up, some little nuggets, and then maybe what it might be like or what lessons he's learned to run from the future. He could to run an event like that in the future, or maybe help you learn how you might run your next event. So,
all right,
that's quite interesting. But before we do that, thanks everyone for joining us. Please do leave some comments below, or if you listen to this as a podcast, just go outside, touch some grass, whatever you need to do. But before you do that,
I often listen to this on YouTube like a podcast. So you can touch grass even if you're a YouTube listener. Yes. Twitch guys, though, they're just terminally inside.
I love the Twitch guys. They're my favorite. Also, special shout out to everyone at the gym right now, right? Just working away while you're listening.
I love a good Warhammer podcast at the gym.
A lot of people do. So, Val Heffelfinger, past week, you haven't really had much time for hobby. But what else has been going on? You been okay? Everything all right? Have you had any hobby time? Have you looked at anything? Thought about much? I know you've got lots of stuff at the moment, so not really time for that. But
yeah, it's been a real one in real life. So appreciate the sentiments there. But I do have one thing, which is had a friend reach out who's just randomly in town. So maybe I'll actually play a game on Thursday.
Lovely.
So that would be nice. Maybe in the evening, get a little game going. And I've realized Capital City Bloodbath is coming up. So I guess around a week or two ago, I got a bunch of games in and just got absolutely slammed, destroyed, just crushed by Beastmen, friend of the show, Moose Green. Who's actually a local, like a neighbor of mine, essentially, who I discovered through the power of Warhammer Fantasy. He absolutely smashed me with Beastmen, repeatedly. And I got to the point where I was starting to be like, oh man, what's happening? And then he went out this past weekend, won an RTT, and that feels okay now. That feels okay now. You know what? That's all right.
That's all right.
He beat another friend of the viewer, Oss, I think, in the final, who's rocking Ogres. Ogres went 2-1 at that event at, what the heck is it called? Not Lost Sword. The Sword and Board in Toronto, home of perhaps the dankest. This is the dankest gaming dungeon that you've ever seen. It's just sort of a damp basement game space. It's got some charm, I guess, but humid. It's a humid place. Perhaps I'm glad it exists. But not the biggest fan of Sword and Board. But they did run an old world event. It seemed like they had a wonderful time. And I'm sorry I slagged them just now. I always do that when I bring them up. Because I'm so, in Toronto, it's just every single game place, a place where you can play games is a precious resource in the city. There just aren't many of them. So I should really stop slagging them. But anyway, Sword and Board,
as someone who also runs a gaming venue, I guess, and I'm consistently embarrassed about how it looks. I think it looks fine, but I am consistently embarrassed. It's just one of those things where it's just so daunting. You're like, cool, I know how to run an event and do other stuff, but setting up stores, setting up gaming spaces, that's a lot mentally to take on as someone who's doing it. And it's very daunting. It's very daunting.
Well, that's why I'm a bad person. And I need to check my privilege. I'll plug them again. Sword and Board. They also have great used minis at the Sword and Board. Good options for your used minis there. Good stuff. Anyway, so I got absolutely destroyed by these beastmen, but then they went on and destroyed everyone else too. So that makes you feel a little better. When you lose to the champ, it's not as bad. And then what else? Yes, that's kind of it. I have gotten some games in and some time with friends in real life, which has been very good. And then what about you, Rob? Have you done anything hobby related in the past 2 weeks?
Well, I have been painting. And like, if you are watching this video, you should go check out.
I didn't know that.
You should go check out the other video because the other video is about the painting competition, and I have picked up my mini for the painting competition. With the exception of that, I busted out. I got really excited by the Warriors show, and I busted out all my like Marauder conversions that I did, which is fun. And then I have also done quite a lot. I've ran 2 events since we last did a show together. I ran 2. Wow, I mean, we did the show about the Warriors release, but I've ran 2 events, which are both like pretty much sold out, which is really fantastic.
One of them was.
One of them was
like everyone showed up too. Sick.
Yeah. Like they're always sold out, but then people drop. That's generally the problem. But yeah, everyone turned up, which was really fun. Loads of new people. I want to shout out all those people. And so yeah, back to back, and it was just some incredibly lively atmosphere. Everyone was super excited. Everyone was discussing weird and funky lists. People were talking about. I've done a couple of event review videos, which I know people have watched as well. So that's been fun. The hobby was really high. The atmosphere, genuinely, the atmosphere is stunning. And I got to shout out all the people that keep making all those like return, like Connor and the Knights of the Shy guys, like Ed, like all those guys, Jack. Both Jacks. We had a Jack off this weekend. That was great. Watched two men in a Jack off. That was good. Both Jacks. Rebecca's been wonderful. She's been helping me like run the events. That's been good. So I can do some recording. So like she did that so I could record like the games over the weekend. And also if you are part of the Squarebase Patreon, and I've told you this already, we set up this weekend just gone. Not a lot of people watched. That's fine. But instead of streaming on Twitch, not because I didn't want to stream on Twitch, but once you stream on Twitch, I feel like it has to be more of a show. I had to put more like energy and effort in. But instead, what I did was you can do this thing on Discord where this took a while to set up, but it was really fun.
Yes.
This thing where you can have a stage, it's called. It's like a Discord like thread, and then
there's a stage,
the world's your stage, and the streaming table. We do have 4 streaming tables, but the streaming table with all of the equipment on, I set it up so that you could hear the players and watch the game. And because it's got a multi-camera track thing, I could change the camera angle several times if people wanted. There's also a PTZ, so I could like do some zooming in and do some other stuff. But the thing is I didn't do it all the time because for the final round, Rebecca had to become a spare player. I would jump off and do some other jobs now and again. So that's why it was nice doing it that way and not having to do it on Twitch. Because once it's on Twitch, I've got to really, focus and make sure it's like a, super high bar. Whereas when it was just, a Discord room on Patreon as a bonus ad for Patreon, it's like, cool, you can just listen into a match if you want to. You're not, it was good. I was really, really happy with that. I was super happy. So that's fun. And that's something now, because you got like, better than anyone, but for the audience, for you to understand, if I'm going to say I'm going to stream a weekend, that's probably a minimum of 4 people who I need to help me stream. I need someone to run the event. It's me plus another person doing commentary and at least a single table boss minimum to do that. And that's actually quite
to do the full bar.
Yeah. So that's a high amount of like labor to add to bring like a live stream, but it requires only me and someone to run the event. And then maybe could get away with just doing it myself as well. Like if I'm just setting up a camera with some audio, like, and it's really good audio, like it's very expensive microphones, like they're very good audio. So like that's
these are the most expensive microphones.
They're so
the best
good. Microphones.
Well,
they are. They're really good. They're really good. So the audio is really nice. So like that's really low bar for me to add a value product to people, and you could listen. And I mean, you got to watch Chris Cousins play against David, which is like, if you're a Warhammer Fantasy Battle fan, that is like a blast from the past. The Dwellers Below battling it out over the weekend.
Below.
The Dwellers
I know. Yeah, you had some friggin' celebrity matchups. It was sick.
Yeah.
And also, I would say, just so that you're like, I think also just the very fact that it was on a stage because we were using new tech. Wait till you see forums. Isn't this? We're gonna bring some forums into the Discord too. But because it was new tech, I think people just didn't know to go there. So like as you do it more often, because I also wanted to run the stage, but didn't invest all the time that you did into setting it up. So thank you. And I think it'll be even better as people realize that there's stuff being streamed there. Because I'm sure you'll do it for AOS as well.
Yeah,
for our friends who enjoy AOS and are part of the broader Honest Wargamer umbrella. So yeah, I think it's a really awesome thing to start doing, and it's a matter of conditioning too. As long as if you stream, the more you stream, the more people know to count on you to have games there, and more people will start showing up.
Yeah, I super agree with that. Every time I'm in the future, I'm gonna let people know this weekend was a bit of a test. In the future, I'll just be like, cool, we're all jumping in this weekend. So I've got 2 AOS events booked in, and then I think I have the next Old World event booked in as well. And then so that'll be one that we stream, which is super fun. I'm hoping maybe to play in that one. I'll have to see. So I ran a couple of events is what I've been doing, and then I set up so people in the Patreon could like watch games at the arena, where we constantly have events, which I feel is good. Like there's a lot of consistent game footage and conversation, because that's the biggest thing that's coming away from the weekends is there's so many active players, like probably the most prolific players in the world are attending my events like regularly. They're attending other events as well, obviously. Yeah. But like they're attending a lot. And so the conversation is really mature. There's lots of good chats. Like this weekend, the event just gone, we had every single faction apart from Dark Elves, which obviously Val is so happy about. But what happened was I gotta tell you about this because it's so fun. So I got an email. I got an email about this over the weekend. So I put up the video. What? Yeah, I put up a video over the weekend, and I was just like, "Yo, it's so funny." I got, "Hi Rob, my name is Caitlin." Oh, I'm going to get this wrong. Gravliscu, and I'm an avid follower of the Squarebase channel. Seeing that there were no Dark Elves representing made me want to play in one of your November events, as I need to fly in from Spain. Which airport would you recommend to book a flight to? Keep up the good work. Hopefully meet you in person, Caitlin. How funny is that? Like, that Dark Elf player's like, fuck Val Heffelfinger. I'm going to travel there. Yeah.
I also want as I've thrown a bunch of shade on the Dark Elves and inadvertently killed the entire faction. My mistake. I didn't understand the power of my words, Rob. All right. But let's get these guys coming out of the rafters a little bit. Stay hydrated, homie. Wow. That's amazing. Just why? Wow. That is a very large jug of water.
You could say it's a massive jugs.
It's big jugs. Another part of the expanded Honest Wargamer universe. But anyway, yes, I've been a little bit put off by how little Dark Elf love there is out there. And although I guess Hugo did run Dark Elves in the first ever Square-based event at the TSN. So maybe they'll be back again in the future. And also after no Dark Elves showed up in the Square-based online tournament. I have seen in the comments other people threatening to play them in a future online event. So maybe we'll start seeing some Dark Elves out there.
Yeah, a load of the lads from the weekend as well. It's like similar to what happened like at the start of like my in-person events. You had a bunch of the guys bring like the lists or the armies that they really loved, and then some sort of stats went up. I don't have a lot of faith in the stats that are knocking around at the minute, but anyway, it's a side note. But then they just picked a couple of factions they thought weren't doing well, and then you started seeing people pop up with Skaven, ogres, trying to push rocks uphill and see what that experience was like. And I thought that was really super interesting. But that brings us on to kind of like, so I've been running events. I've been putting the feelers out for hobby. Which has been fun, but I am in the middle of both a venue shakeup, we're getting the electricity sorted, and also moving flat. So there's a ton of stuff to do while keeping up with my regular content schedule. So unfortunately, hobby or the desire to hobby has to take a back seat at the moment, which is unfortunate. But the thing that has been happening in the past few months, which you guys have kind of heard and we've kept up with a lot, is you've run the S-Spot online. And a quick recap is that it was an online tournament using Warhall, which is a website you can use to play these games. And it's all built in New Recruit. You can build lists on, you can play. They've been streamed in our Discord. So I'm just going to take a little while now to ask you about running that and what that's been like. So first off, do you have any like highlight thoughts? Like what was running 100-person online event like? How did that, what was the challenges?
So I would say first and foremost, I was really, really impressed with how close it was to running a real event. We spread it out over 6 weeks. And so I was very curious to see just how many people would make it through to the end. I think we started with around, so the way we did it was we had a 2-week exhibition round, and in order to qualify to actually play in the main event, you had to get 1 game in. And that was a little bit of social engineering in the sense that what I was trying to do there was just get people to, like, if they could book 1 game in 2 weeks, maybe that shows enough commitment that they'll actually keep playing. And I think that it was actually fairly accurate. We went from about 110 initial signups to about 100. And then I think by the end, we had 80 some odd players finish 5 rounds. So that was, I want to say there was about 85 who did finish the whole event. Yes, indeed, that is true. So that's pretty impressive. And a lot of those, a lot of people were probably saying like, oh, folks dropped after losing a game. And maybe there were 1 or 2 that they got discouraged and they dropped, or maybe the experience wasn't exactly what they were looking for. But I think really what it was in a lot of cases is just that, like, when you're spreading something out over 6 weeks, like we know your life can change a lot in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So things can come up, stuff happens with work, whatever it might be. So I think, winding up with around 10 people dropping over that course of that 6 weeks really spoke to me as like an awesome sign of how engaged the community that jumped onto this was, and also how patient they were with me, because we were trying a bunch of different things with it. It's an international event, so one of my big things that I was trying to wrap my brain around is, well, how do you get people to stay with it week after week? And then and one of the thoughts I had was you want to try and make the games, making those pairings as easy as possible. And the thought I had for that was like doing pairings not just based on your record, but also based on your time zone. So essentially, you're always the goal was to always pair you into your own time zone, as long as there was someone with the same win-loss record as you. So but eventually you might run out of players to play in your own time zone. Looking at you, Australia, because there are 10 players in Australia, and then probably 30 in Europe, 30 in the UK, and 30 in North America, give or take. So that's roughly the breakdown. Mm. However, I didn't have the technology to back that up, i.e. the pairings were being done manually. And I was doing those time zones as opposed to it actually being by time zone. It was actually sort of grouped. I sort of lumped sort of the Western North America together and Eastern North America. And the Western North American time zone was actually a plus or minus 4 hours. So even that still, we had Danny, who's a good friend of mine. He lives in Alaska. So he's sort of North American. But he can be, almost a 4-hour difference from somebody in the middle of North America, not even the East Coast. Mm. So I want to get that more dialed in for the next one. This very much was a beta of doing this, but overall, I was just so impressed with how into it people got, how regularly people showed up for watching games. It was wild.
Have you thought about running like regionals leading into like a smaller kind of committed like finals?
I think as we designed the next series, the other thing is that I did cut it at 5 weeks, and only the 2 undefeated players wound up playing the 6th week, and that was some feedback for me. I think a lot of people were kind of disappointed that they didn't play their final matchup. Mm. But again, I was just breaking down from all the from getting everything sort of lined up using this, because it was a spreadsheet essentially on the back end, and then manually entered each week. But yeah, maybe we could maybe do. I mean, this is sometimes a bad word, but pods. We could use pods to do things in the run up.
I think a nice thing about, like, especially if you're doing online regionals, like, you have everyone in Australia play, they end up with an Australian, champion, if you will. What's fun about that process is that community gets to know itself better. Like, so all the Australians get to know each other a little bit better. Then, the North Americans get to know each other a little bit better. And that, like, because what we're trying to do, and this is for everyone out there, what me and Val are trying to do and have been trying to do since the beginning, and go back and watch us talk about this multiple times, is we're trying to grassroots build a player base who play the game. That's the thing that we're most excited about, and that's what we've always wanted. And so building communities, engaging, developing communities and groups is something that we actively want to do. I feels like that ties in with that really nicely as an idea. I think that works quite nice. Like, have some regional representatives, get a little bit of help and support on that front, because I think that's how most events run, right? Like, if you take the WTC for 40K or Age of Sigmar, or ETC as it used to be, effectively you have the leadership, but then you have the regional team captains, and they do all of their management up, right? That works.
I think it could work, but ultimately there's going to come a day where someone's got to wake up early or someone's got to stay up late, right? Yeah. So I think I still like the idea of what we were doing. It's just, I think it's a matter of working with new recruit, because I'm in a chat thanks to the connections provided by Hugo. I am in a chat with them to try and maybe build this into the actual pairing, so that's something that could be built in. Because the other thing is that if you take it only matters for the players that are at the top of all the brackets, right? So you should only really have to play someone outside of your local zone if there's no one else to play, or if there's no one else to play. Once you've taken a loss, odds are you can go back into your local area and not have to have the awkwardness in pairing against other people. So I still am sort of liking the concept. I feel like when it worked really well. And that really the biggest issue with it was the admin on it. And I'm not really a details guy, Rob. More of a big picture ideas guy.
Broad strokes guy.
More of your executive leadership type. But I did do my best. The other thing too was I was using New Recruit. What other things did I learn? Oh, and also about that building community thing. I don't know. Please leave a comment down below if this happened to you. But like me personally, I have made a bunch of local connections, and like which is strange because this was from a group of players, again, literally all over the world. And so I've met a number of people who are Canadian. Some of them quite local to me, like within an hour's drive. Some of them just in Ontario. So people that now I have connections with, that like when I go to a big regional event, whether it's our own Squarebase Open Toronto or Capital City Bloodbath that's coming up, like I'll have a connection with those people because of this virtual event. And I hope that's happened for other people too. I hope that like people did manage to meet some folks that are either local to them or local-ish, that we can build upon. Because I have been thinking a lot about like we've had hilariously we have had two videos named will World Be Bigger Than 40K. And the reason we keep doing that is
coming soon.
Third one's coming. It's a trilogy, people. But one of the reasons we do keep coming to that is that it sure feels like there is a lot of committed players for this game, and there sure does feel like there is a lot of interest. But depending on where you are, that may or may not be actually true. And so I think, and we've also talked a lot about like what is the value of a large event, right? Like so, like because Rob's venue obviously is, I think you can take 22 players, 24 players. Sorry, I'm mistaken. But 24 players, like that, and it feels really great. It's a very collegial atmosphere. You get throughout the course of the day, you probably get to talk to everyone. But when you're looking at the world of Age of Sigmar, 40K, or maybe even some of the bigger events for fantasy back in the day, you're getting up over 100 players. The very, very big ones can be in the multiples of hundreds. The biggest one, if you go out to Las Vegas, that's in the thousands. Like these are these colossal things. And I've often reflected, like, once you're over a certain number, what's the point? And I think I've come to a conclusion that we need to start on this show working harder at promoting large events, because the large events at this stage in the growth of the community, and maybe you can holler back at me if you agree or disagree, but at this stage in the community, what the large event gives people an opportunity to do is have something to work towards, and go to play and meet other people. Usually even a large event, if it's 40 like what we're doing, or 60, or whatever the biggest events are for that old world can handle these days. When all those people go there in their local community, they're gonna be preparing. They're trying to get games. They're gonna be excited and engaged. And then when they come back from those events, maybe that's gonna inspire and create other tournament organizers. I think big events kind of create TOs. And I think that's maybe in the evolution of AOS and 40K, maybe that's kind of how those games got going with such massive tournament scenes and event scenes, is that they did have these big tentpole events, like even like the one that you won at South Coast. I like, and I know, going all the way back to Adepticon was a big inspiration. When you talk to some of the biggest event organizers in North America, they were all inspired by going to Adepticon. So like finding ways to like promote and get people out to the big events, I think it just has a kind of a cascading effect. It's like Johnny Appleseed. It just plants the desire in people to run stuff locally, and it grows from there. So that's just something I've been reflecting on. And I think hopefully something like Squarebase Online Tournament kind of does that too. It just gets people interested and meeting people, interacting, engaging, and realizing why playing these games is so awesome is actually from that connection.
Yeah, I actually have completely opposite feeling about events. I think big events are actually like an incredible drain and weakness for the community. But I do recognize that everything you said, where they're these big affairs that are inspirational. But like, if I was to say to you, hey, you live in Portugal, build 100 tables of terrain and get 400 people, it's like, but then they'll say, but all come to this one singular event once a year here in X. I actually much prefer the grassroots. I'm definitely seeing, or I feel like events, and I think Espot's good. Everyone in the Squarebase kind of community, like wider community, people in our Discord, people who watch the videos, that kind of like growing community of people. Loads of TOs around the world have used our like terrain packs. They've used our FAQs and stuff like that. But I think I much prefer the smaller local, mainly because there's a focus on the quality of the thing. I really do. And like, we could try, like just this weekend, for instance, in Australia, there were 43 people playing at an event this weekend at the Kamoma. I think that's what it's called, the Kamoma. So that was cool. 43 people. I love that. But like, I'm not personally super mega invested in just shoving 100 people into a sports hall, or something similar anywhere in the world. I don't think that does enough for developing community. I think people feel more isolated at those events, not more engaged. But not to disagree.
I think when we talked about this before, I think I agreed with those points, but I think it comes from a place where we're coming from a place that already has, like in AOS and what I previously was into is 40K, already had developed local regional communities. So when I first started playing 40K, I had to travel to GTs because you couldn't, there weren't one-day events happening all the time around me. There weren't even like 32-player events happening all the time around me, right? But I went to those, and then when I came back to the city, like I started pushing and promoting a GT here, which for some reason is escaping me, TGX, which became Toronto proper's like first actual GT, like a 2-day event. And when I say big event, I mean like a 2-day event that you have to plan and be prepared for. And I just think that they just can be just a real source of inspiration for people to, when they go back home, they can create those smaller things and build community back home. And because when I wrap my head around it, like there's no reason to have 1,000-person event, like other than to have 1,000-person event.
That's it. That's the only reason, right?
Right. And so like it's a spectacle. It's cool. It's like if you're into 40K, the big events, the spectacle, whatever. They don't have to be every event, I think, is probably where Rob's coming from here. Like, and they don't have to diminish the quality of being able to go out to a 1-day tournament or a smaller 2-day tournament. Like, those things have their function, but I just think the big events do have a purpose, and that's maybe what SBOT and some reflection is giving me. Is I think they can be inspirations to create community, because I do see places where maybe there's folks who are talking a lot about the game. We see it in the comments all the time. People who are watching, people who are engaging with us or watching other content, but they're maybe not yet, they haven't yet taken the plunge and gotten into the game because maybe there just isn't that local scene. So like going to an event or like finding something that you can go to, it just, I think maybe plants that seed, maybe gets people a little more interested in creating community around them. And also allows you a chance to discover, maybe you have to travel 100 miles to meet the guy who lives next door to you. Like, you know what I mean? And like that's literally happened to me. So that's just sort of like a reflection I have on events, and I understand where you're coming from too, big time.
Yeah. So who won the SBOT? How do we end up at the end of that process?
Thank you, sir. Well, I think that's a very good thing to go to. So let's do our top 3. We got Denarius from Australia playing Wood Elves. He defeated Kyra's Canadian, localish to me as well, who is playing Orcs and Goblin tribes. And actually, we've been chatting a lot about his experience playing Orcs and Goblins. It's been very cool. And then after fixing as much as I could with the matchups and pairings, because, again, there were some administrative errors there. But we're going to say, bust a move in third place. He was 4 no losses and 1 draw. So he had the next best record. Mm-hmm. And so that's our top 3. Now, those top 3 players going to get some prizes, Rob. Mm-hmm. We're going to send out some dice, some Squarebase swag, some widgets, maybe some of your awesome movement trays. So we're going to send a little package out to them. First place, also winning a full year, full boat, full ride to Warhall, to Denarius. So that's a 1-year subscription, 6 months to Kyra's, 3 months to Bust a Move. And then also, if you might be patient with me, Rob, we have another 10-month subscriptions to give out, which due to just the way things went, I decided to give these out more like a door prize to everyone who finished all rounds of the event. Were entered into it, went over to ChatGPT, asked it to please select 10 players at random. So we got Ryan Williams, Chuck Kleins, Jelly, Alejandro Serkovich, Dippy117, Tech Commander, Shane Brain, Peter Sundberg, Scout Lance, Robin Juiceberg, and those people all win a 10-month sub to Warhall for making it to the bitter end of the Square-based online tournament. That's how we're cutting it up. And also, if you go to newrecruit.eu and look up the Square-based online tournament, you can see our full top, how everyone wound up finishing, and take a look at lists and stuff there as well.
That's cool. That's super cool.
And if I could plug Ed, because I know he's a patron and he's an attendee of a lot of TSN events, and also has been so excited to do like event coverage and talk to players. And Ed did a really cool follow-up video after the Square-based final with Denarius. So if you want to hear Denarius chat about the state of Wood Elves, I think they talk a little bit about it. The Dwellers guys talked a bit about it, because I think Wood Elves just ran a monk at the TSN as well. But that's close order, and there's a really great post-game interview that you can watch. We have a recording as well of the final between Denarius and Kyra's. It was wild. It actually did come down. I think it was an 11-9 was the final. So it was like actually did wind up being thrilling, because it looked very one-sided at times. So I think it's a game worth watching. So Rob and I will figure out how to post that up so that there's some content there for you guys if you wanted to see the legendary first final of the Square-based online tournament.
Yeah. So is there Is there any big takeaways from the event that you think that you obviously talked about pairings and the structure there? Like, is there any thoughts about like a player's code, which is something we see in other game systems? Is there any kind of other thoughts or things that you'd like to do? You'd like to make it a bigger event? You'd like to split it up? We talked about that as well. Like any kind of like future plans if you were to run something online again. One of the big questions I get asked a lot at my events is because we do win, loss, draw. So in order to win the event, which is if you do have arrived from Warhammer Fantasy Battle Days, this is a disembarkation from how things used to be. Things used to be, however many points you beat your opponent by would bring you some sort of score between 20 and 0, the 20-0 system we call it, or a differential system. But I
or
use
even
that,
just the aggregate of all the points you score is another way. Like
kill points is a good one. I do win, loss, draw because my events don't need to have anything else. But even if I had a 100-person event, I would do win, loss, draw, and then I would do. But I would not give a prize for first place. I would just give, these are the undefeated, these are the 5-0s. That's how I would maybe give a top in the 4-1 bracket, something like that, because the differential. But that's how I would always do it. I feel like you're an array of, if you go 5-0, it's the same as 5-0 and smash everyone 20-0 and 5-0 and you squeak out 11 wins. Sure, you're smashing everyone 20-0 is better than squeaking out, but you might have played 5 tougher opponents or whatever. I like if you go 5-0, you've crushed it. Here's a trophy. What you've done great. But what are your thoughts? Where you were that?
So to answer the first question, I think as far as like how things went from a player perspective, I definitely am coming at this from like super rose tinted glasses. Every time I popped in, it seemed like things were good. I have a certainly biased position. Obviously, we're the guys who run the show, so like I don't, so my that's going to affect probably some of the interactions I get to have. And so what I'm getting at here is I want to put out a post-game survey, like a post-event survey. I know it's already getting a bit stale, but I would love to hear from the players what they think about how things went, notwithstanding some of the shortcomings, but like how was the interaction? Like how did you feel your opponents were, that kind of stuff, just to see, because it felt like the vibes were good, but I want to make sure they were good. I'd love to hear feedback about format, all that kind of stuff on that front. As for win-loss draw, I am also a win-loss person. It just so happened in the case of SBOT, I think due to draws and stuff, that we did wind up with only 2 like truly undefeated players, or 2 5-0 players, because there was one person on a draw. Actually, that did bring me out. It does bring up a cool thing is that in 4th and 5th place, we have Phil Carl, who wound up with 81 tournament points, and King Pash, and Phil Carl was playing Tomb Kings, and King Pash was playing High Elves. Both of them broke 80 points, which actually wound up outscoring from a tournament point perspective the people who wound up in 1st and 2nd. So I like, and maybe it's a North American thing, although you are from the UK, but I do think sort of aggregate scoring versus win-loss draw is like a cultural divide in the scene. And some tournaments will run win-loss draw. Some tournaments will just run total tournament points. And I think they both have their merits. I like win-loss draw also because it encourages more towards maximizing your ability to win a game, which to me makes it a little less about smashing your opponent as much as you possibly can. So it's more important to have a close game and win than it is to only have big wins. And so that does change the meta as well.
It does.
And I just, this is a personal taste and preference. If I went to your event, guys out there, guys and gals who might be running events, and it was all tournament points, I'm probably still going to have a good time, and you probably have very good reasons for doing that. I personally prefer, though, the environment that's created by win-loss draw, by making it so that it's more about winning that game. It becomes more cagey to me, and that's just my own personal taste and preference. There are other ways to skin that, though. So that's it.
Yeah, good. I think we could break that down for hours and hours, because that would be really fun. That is a hot topic as well. Also,
Yes.
win, loss, draw, random. Let's go for that pairings. Shout out
Yes.
all my homies who know. Really, really fun. Okay, good. Well, I mean, I gotta say two things. One, from me as your friend, congratulations. Like,
Thanks, sir.
I think you should be really proud. And I'm sure the whole online, like, kind of Square-based community, you know, should be, super thankful that you decided to put this together. I'm sure friendships were made and people around the world have become closer in their shared hobby because of your work. So you should be really proud of yourself.
Dare to dream.
I think that's really good. And number two, just keep going. When you get the chance, when you get the time, let's work out how we can do that better, because I think that's fun. And thank you also to Hugo, especially, for all the massive support in helping it happen, right?
Oh yeah. Thank you for saying that. Actually, Hugo, and then we had just a very lively community of players who were really. So one thing about the online environment is that it's very exacting, right? So you can measure a wheel properly in an online tournament, and people were really dissecting rules and asking, I think, a lot of sharp questions. Probably could have answered even more of them than we did, but I think the community kind of helped itself a lot. But anyway, Hugo helped bail me out of a number of jams with getting pairings up when I was tangled up on the morning. Obviously was there with support for the platform itself. Hugo is the fellow. My friend Swaco on our Discord.
Mm-hmm.
So shout out Hugo. And then also Os helped call the final round. So he was our table judge. I had at one point actually reached out for people to raise their hand up to be, judges and resources and things. Again, this was a beta. I was building the boat while I was in the hurricane. So I wasn't actually able to organize a group of people to be that judge resource. I think in the future I will, formalize a group so that everyone's always able to get a third party to help in those situations, because sometimes for me, having a judge is as much about just taking the pressure off of the players to be right and wrong, and just having that third arbiter. They get to be the one who's right or wrong. The players can just have fun playing each other. I think that's the most important part of a judge, is that they can bear the load of determining the winner or loser of figuring out a situation. Also helps a game go a lot faster when we've got differing levels of skill and amount of games played. That was a big takeaway too, is how many people actually, this was their first action, and they stuck through to the bitter end because they just wanted to learn how to play the game. It was a really good way to do that.
I'm in this fight right now in the Age of Sigmar community, and I'm going to stick my flag in the ground that I'm in this fight in the Old World community as well. It's very funny to have seen all of the immediate hot takes week 1, week 2 of the launch of Old World, to then see this burgeoning Old World community scene, like this tournament scene, who I've seen at my events and stuff, and then everyone just still being 7 months in, 6 months, 7 months in, 6 months in, which is where we are right now. Someone be like, "This is my first event," and I'm like, "Amazing." Yeah. They're like, "This is my first 2 games," and I'm like, "Great." You're talking. It's still so fresh. It's still so new. Sure, there are grinders. There are absolutely grinders, but we're talking they're the 1%. And 80% of the audience are just out there being like, "This might be my first event." So I'm really proud of us for taking the time to just be like, "Look, let's not go too big on anything. Let's just encourage people to go play games." And then as soon as they're doing that, and I'm watching people do that, you're watching people do that online, then you're realizing, do you know what? We're still all learning this game. It's still new. There's still lots happening, and that's super exciting. Also, side note, really hoping you get a little bit of I hope you get a nomination for Best Old World TO 2024. I'm hoping that nomination comes your way.
It would be an honor to be nominated. But there's real tough competition out there.
As I understand it, the minimum barrier to entry is running 5 events. So. Yeah, that's what the council of the awarding body council has decided.
Well, Robert, I guess this is yours to win, sir.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about me. Maybe I'll get nominated. That is a good shout. Who knows?
If we could give here you go. Here, this is for you. This is for you. You're the number one TO in my heart. You gave me this,
brother. You've still got months. Just bang out a couple super quick.
I got one big one coming.
Yeah, okay.
I got one big one coming. So Squarebase. The Squarebase Toronto event coming up in October is gonna be awesome. And also and then also the Squarebase online tournament will kick off. I want to say probably early October. We'll want to get it wrapped up in advance of American Thanksgiving. We'll probably be kicking that one off in early October. So we'll be getting all that stuff together. A couple weeks from now. That's crazy. Time flies, man.
It does. All right. Well, listen, if you're part of the Squarebase online tournament or you are playing tournaments or your TOs around the world, let us know where you're playing, what you're doing. It'll be fun to hear from you. Special thank you to Val and all of the players who took part. Hope you're excited about your prizes, and we'll just get to you later. So thanks very much. Special shout out from us. See you all soon, and goodbye.